Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Shining Fates, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code Omnipoke. And today's video is going to be talking all about Shining Fates. I'm going to be doing a quick set review. Now, there really is not that many brand new cards from the set. It is one geared more towards the collectors than those playing the game, but it's still worth getting to know the things that you may be coming up against in the ladder, and there are still one or two highlights from this set. So rather than doing full slides on all sorts of cards, I'm going to be trying to lump things in together to make it a much faster review, because ultimately I'm going to be familiarizing yourselves with these cards, but telling you not really to worry about the majority of them. We'll start off with the new supporters. We have the Bull Guy supporter, which is an upgrade to a previously successful Apricorn Maker supporter card. This guy allows you to find 3 different item cards that have the word Ball in their name and grab them straight into your hand from the deck. At the moment, we have Cherish Ball, Quick Ball, and Great Ball all in standard, as well as Pokeball. And obviously Pokeball isn't really a strong enough card to be playing in many decks. I don't think that this is a good enough, really, search engine for, evolving things. I don't think you're going to start seeing Ball Guy go into things like Mad Party, even those sorts of decks that want to get a ton of Pokemon out straight away. I just think he's not as good as Power Draw from Marnies and researchers for the majority of the time. Especially because it's not only the Bull Guys that you need to find, but then you also need to pad out your deck with more than just 4 Quick Ball. You need to add in more Great Balls and more Cherish Balls. And obviously in the sort of mid to late game, he gives you diminishing returns because you may have played too many of those Bull Search cards anyway, as you progress through the game. So I think he is quite weak. One thing to note, though, in the Battle Styles meta, there may be a deck focused around Bull Guy using Galarian Mr. Rime. So maybe a bit of extra emphasis on him could be for that exact archetype. There's also Gym Trainer. It's a draw 2, but if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you draw 2 more cards. Again, drawing 2 is obviously a terrible supporter style effect, and drawing 2 more with that upside of having something knocked out isn't that great. We already have something like Dance of the Tribute that can get you almost that amount of value if you've suffered a knockout the previous turn, and you could still play a supporter after that Dance of Tribute. So Gym Trainer doesn't really serve any purpose. Both outcomes are weak. And we have Rosa, and there's also a Bruno supporter as well coming out in Battle Styles, which will have a bigger upside than Gym Trainer. So 1 star for that guy. For the new tools, we get 1 for Zacian and 1 for Zamazenta. The Rusted Sword seems incredible to me, and probably the strongest card of the set, seeing as though it can immediately just attach itself onto a Zacian V, one of the best attackers already in the format, and it allows Zacian to do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. That means if it's in ADP, you can GX, and then your Zacian is hitting 290 with Brave Blade with a sword attached, which is enough for you to get over opposing ADPs as well as any other tag team Pokemon in the format. It also means you can counterbalance the reduction of a Luke Metal in that matchup as well. So you're improving your Luke Metal matchup by having the Rusted Sword in. At the moment, I've been playing Vitality Band in a 1/2 count, and Rusted Sword arguably could be a better include, especially if you think the Luke Metal matchup is important enough to beat. There may still be people choosing to play Vit Band and Big Charm anyway, but this is a new one into the mix for ADP. Additionally, it can find its way probably as just a one-of into Luke Metal Zacian, because it can be a nice way to improve your damage, especially against Pikarom. I find it very important for Zacian to be able to one-hit KO a Pikarom in the Luke Metal deck, so that seems like a lot of value to me. You can get that Full Metal Ball GX, then you can have a Rusted Sworded Zacian that can KO the Pika, and then it just makes the Bolton far less dangerous, and it should really swing your matchup. So if you're playing Guzhala in your Luke Metal, or this could even be a reason for you to put Guzhala back into Luke Metal and maybe increase that tag call count so you have access to 1 Rusted Sword, and it could be good enough to swing that Pikarom matchup, as well as be decent in other situations as well. For example, if you come up against Big Charmed ADP-based builds, you can then still knock out their Zacian in one hit. So yeah, a really good tool for Luke Metal. And there's the possible new build, which is going to be Turbo Zacian. I'm spending a lot of time talking about this Rusted Sword, because let's face it, it's one of the most interesting cards from this set by far. And yeah, it could bring about a new age of sort of turbo tempo Zacian, where you cut out the tag team altogether, you don't go for any GX attack, you're just committing your energy attachments onto your Zacians and allowing that Rusted Sword to bump Brave Blade's raw damage up to 260. You can have Berserker to jump that all the way up to 280, or you can try having Zigzagoon scoop up net alongside things like Jirachi to give yourself, some better access to trainer cards, whilst also having Headbutt Tantrum to push you into tag team range. So I think we could also start seeing some solo Zacian builds on the ladder as well, thanks to the power of this tool card. So very, very strong overall. We'll be seeing a lot of play. The Rusted Shield, however, looks a lot less impressive. First of all, Zamazenta is only really put into the Luke Metal decks, so immediately it's, far less available and usable in a ton of different decks, like the Sword is. And the Shield also competes with Metal Goggles. Now, the Shield is doing quite well. A plus 70 hit points just on Zamazenta makes it a 300 hit point 2-prizer, which is super tanky, even more tanky if you have used that full metal wall. But overall, I think the Metal Goggles being spread out is going to be better for you. If we do go back to saying that the Sword is going to be in the deck and Guzhala is in the deck, maybe there's an argument that can be made where you play like 2 Goggles, 1 Sword, 1 Shield. But it's getting quite random then. And there's a ton of matchups where you don't even put down a Zamazenta in the Luke Metal deck. So I feel like Goggles will just be the priority overall, and the Sword will be the one making it into the Luke Metal deck overall. The final new item card is Team Yell Towel. It allows you to heal 50 from both active Pokemon. This reminds me of Great Potion that actually saw play when there was a greens-based meta. But I do find it harder to see this sort of card do well because it can be double-sided, so there's less situations where you'd want to use the Yell Towel. Possibly you have to Great Catcher or boss something up that you're going to knock out and then use the towel to heal yourself. Or if you're a big 1-hit KO deck, you can then use the Yell Towel knowing that you can knock them out anyway. So this, in many situations, will actually just be a one-sided heal for yourself, which isn't that bad in an item card. But I think what we've seen from like Malolana being, first of all, Malolana is a switch effect, which is a lot of the reason why it's in current archetypes right now. But even then, Malolana is just a one-of supporter, but it heals so much more than a Team Yell Towel. So it's going to take a lot more space to make the Yell Towel's heal effect that useful. It feels like you need to combo like 2 to 3 towels all in one turn just to have a swing style approach here. And I don't think decks have that much space, so we're giving that the 1 star. Onto the Pokemon now then. We do have a number of evolution upgrades, which is quite nice. Snom is going to be a nice upgrade to the current one that we have, allowing you to get an extra basic, so you're going to get donked less with Frostmoth, and you are a combo-based deck, so you like having early access to your Inteleon to a backup Snom if this one's stuck in the active. So that's going to be a decent include for you. The Coughing has Ascension, which allows you to go straight into Galarian Wheezing and establish an ability lock on the opponent's side when this is stuck in the active. I do still think that the Coughing is only really going to be in that sort of 2-star range, because I don't believe a straight Wheezing style deck is going to be strong enough, even with the help of like Toxicroak, to improve that damage. We've gone down that rabbit hole before, and Ascension isn't a good enough buff to make that super duper strong. Obviously, you're giving your opponent at least 1 turn to use their early Dedennes, their early Crobat sort of thing, before you establish that lock. And even then, I feel like a lot of decks can outperform Wheezing, even without abilities. So I think that's a bit of a problem for it. I also don't think this is a good enough include in things like Eternatus, because you still want to commit your energy attachment to Eternas themselves rather than to Coughing just to ascend into the active and try and be disruptive. It's not going to be worthwhile. I feel like Power Plant has just been a more established option in Eterna for greater success than anyone playing Wheezing lines. So yeah, this Coughing will see some experimentation, but I really don't think it's that worth it. And the Thwackey we're also giving 2 stars just because it is a strict upgrade to the current Thwackey that we have. Seeing as though, again, the Eggrow deck often is using Guz Hala, you're going to put a Stadium down, the Thwackey can be a retreating option for you. Typically, you're going to just evolve straight up into the Rillaboom anyway, but there are certain situations where maybe you've prized a Rillaboom and one's in your hand, where you just go into the Thwackey, and then this can still be a pivot for you. So it's basically no improvement whatsoever in the majority of games, but the fact that it has this additional text, which can be free retreat, means that it's better than the other Thwackeys that we have. 2 stars just because the Rillaboom Eggrow is kind of that tier 3 to rogue tier. Same thing for the Snom thing. The Frostmoth decks are currently rogue type archetype, so all going to have low 2 stars across the board. For some helpful starters, we have some really nice cards here. The Manaphy, having that Ocean Search, allowing you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck, find a Pokemon, and put it straight into your hand. It's essentially a -1 from Great Ball, and that's kind of my problem. It's one of those things where, do you just want to play like one Manaphy? You start it very, very few times per game, but then just having one in play and like one U-turn board means that every now and then, when things are knocked out, you can pivot in and out and get extra options to get Pokemon? Or do you just want to jam your deck with more Great Balls from the offset, giving you higher chance of like using them immediately and having, you know, one extra card to look at the entire time? And I think for most one prize decks, they'll probably just want that proactive immediate search from Great Ball. Even then, Great Ball isn't that strong of an effect, and by proxy, Manaphy isn't going to be that strong either for the searching opportunity. And if you want to commit, you know, like 4 spaces plus additional switch outs to the Manaphy, you have to think that, is it outweighing the power of just playing Great Balls and other search cards on top instead? And then we flip over to the Celebi side, which I'm a bit more optimistic on. It has Woodland Stroll. Once during a turn, if this is your active, you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck and reveal an energy card you find there and put it into your hand. This is almost like an energy lotto. Again, it's like a -1. And I think this is going to have more standout opportunities, especially post-battle styles when we have Rapid Strike energy. I've seen it in a few Japanese deck lists that's going to be using Rapid Strike alongside Urshifu VMAX. So Celebi might well have a home in those sorts of archetypes, but I also think this is just kind of versatile in that it can grab you early capture energies if you are a deck that can abuse that sort of effect. Twin energies as well if you are able to use those sorts of things. So the Celebi feels stronger to me, especially because if you're playing 4 capture energies, the Celebi is giving you similar odds to Manaphy at finding you a Pokemon, but it's getting you an attachment at the same time. So the Celebi seems like a stronger option to me. Both of these cards do currently compete with Stellar Wish, as well as Amazing Regirochi and Snorlax, and they're not always going to come out on top against those, so I've still rated them low, even though they are, you know, potentially going to go into a number of decks. I think they'll oftentimes get beaten by the things we already have in the format, but they are still versatile basic Pokemon that could be used. Next up we have Rotom. Going to give this card 3 stars for its ability Roto Choice. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may search your deck for up to 2 item cards that have the word Rotom in their name, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Rotom Foam currently is seeing play in exactly Colossal VMAX, but I think this is a really big deal for Colossal, especially against the ADP matchup that sometimes it does struggle with. Seeing as though you have Rotom allowing you to look at the top 5 and get the right cards, it means you can have more optimal turns without having to commit to Crobats, Dedennes, and Eldegoss, which is the main loss condition that Colossal has in that ADP matchup. So just having the Rotom instead is going to give you, you know, less easy prizes around the board. Obviously, early access to Rotom Foam is really good for Colossal, so you can use your Oranguru plays and stuff like that to set up those eruption shots. So I think Rotom just being a great one-off for Colossal is going to slightly improve that archetype and will be worth a spot, because the Rotom Foams have proven to be the best way to play Colossal. There's also, like I said earlier, thanks to the new Rusted Sword, potential for a Rustization style deck where you can weave in Rotom Foams. I know that so far in a few online tournaments, we have seen some straight Zacian Zamazenta style decks, and they have oftentimes used Rotom Phone again for that synergy with early game Intrepid Sword, with Oranguru, those sorts of things. And I can foresee that happening again in current Rustization. And if that's the case, Rotom may be a searchable one-of as well. I do think you could certainly see the Zacian list not be playing Rotom as well and just keeping to the phones. Same thing could be said for Colossal. But I think it's just such a nice benefit for you to not have to go early aggressive Dede Change, early aggressive Crobat, because that can come back to bite you in the prize race later on. So I feel like it's a really nice one-of card that can make it into, right now, a couple of decks. And it also may be a star player in any mustard-based builds. for the rapid or single strike decks in the future, because this can be a great combo maker to allow you to get down to a 0-card hand. So Rotom, very cool, very flexible ability. It doesn't only get you the phones, but I feel like the phone is the only item that has Rotom in its name that's worth it right now. So that's why you're only seeing the phones on the slide. Next up, we have the Amazing Rares. I'm giving these all the 1-star treatment. I think I kind of learnt my lesson from the original Amazing Rares that we've seen in Vivid Voltage, and essentially all of these gimmicky energy attachments are too difficult to achieve for their payoff. Kyogre does 80 to each of your opponent's Pokemon, which is really good damage output, but again, it's expensive. I've seen some wacky engines using things like Dragonite to try and get this into play. For Yveltal, it does have welder access because it has a couple colorless energies in there. You just need to try and use like Auroras or basic energies to fulfill those final couple of cards. But at the end of the day, a 5 energy attack should be knocking out anything, and you can do it with other Pokemon much more easily. So it's just really difficult to make this Yveltal work. There is the option to nano the Yveltal, which is something that these other two Amazing Rares don't have available to them. So if you were to play something like Axew and commit a bunch of energies to that guy, your opponent can't interact with that Axew too easily. So the Yveltal probably has the most chance out of all these, but even then, I feel like it's an expensive gimmick with a really, really high attack cost. And Reshiram, again, well durable, also has potentially Tapu Koko Prism Star available. So in theory, you could get an Amazing Blaze off all in one turn with Welder, Turn Attach, and Koko. But that's such dreamer, opportunistic kind of things that just won't happen in a ton of situations. And your energy split will be really, really wacky, to say the least. So I think all of these are glamorous. They'll come off now and then on the ladder, but not going to be worth it in competitive play. On to some Vs and VMAXs then. We'll start off with Dhelmise VMAX. We already have that Dhelmise from Sword and Shield base, and you can also pull it again in the set. But the VMAX is a brand new card, 330 hit points, that has the swinging chain attack for 1 grass. You do 30 to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. So you can be sniping and setting up damage here and there, especially with Voltage Beat in the background. But I don't think it's all that powerful of a snipe, even with things like Telescopic Sight. And Max Anchor does 240, and during your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Max Anchor. Essentially, there's not enough payoff for this card. Again, it's weak to fire, so you always have to factor that in, and it's not really changing much within the Rillaboom Eggrow deck that's going to make me think it's worthwhile playing. So yeah, not a big enough payoff for this kind of card. Onto Ditto V and VMAX. Quite an interesting pair here. The regular Ditto V has 170 hit points and is weak to fighting, which are two unfortunate things there, because it's kind of in that Dedenne and Crobat kind of realm where it's vulnerable to things like Colossal and other things trying to hit for weakness, and it just has naturally low hit points. However, it does have the V Transform ability, which is kind of the star of the show here. Once during a turn, you may choose a basic V Pokemon from your discard pile and switch it with this Pokemon. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, etc. Remain on the new Pokemon. So the idea is that you can turn into, sort of toolbox attackers that you're playing within your deck, especially ones trying to hit for certain type coverages. So essentially, if you play things like Aurora and other special energies, you can transform into different weakness coverage type cards that you just play like a string of one-ofs for like the important types in the game right now, like Psychic, Fighting, Fire, those sorts of things, and then transform into the correct one in the right moments. That's kind of the hope with the V Transform. I've also seen a wacky like Dragapult Colossal VMAX deck trying to come together where you're just one turn attaching to these guys, but you turn into the right VMAX in the right situation because the V Transform can just sort of sit on the board. But all of this sounds really glamorous, but first of all, you're jam-packing your deck with a ton of like toolboxy cards, and then having like 2 to 3 to 4 Ditto in your deck, which is going to take up a ton of spaces. It is still vulnerable on the bench, and your opponent can probably see what your approach is going to be anyway, just by having knowledge of what their weakness is and stuff like that, so they know what to play around just out the gate. I think we already have seen a Aurora Welder box previously. I think it was around the Champion's Path meta where it first came about. And it's like interesting but never really that good, and has like it's within not in the top 4 welder decks in the format right now. So I don't think Ditto is going to change that too much, outside of the fact that you can spam the correct one in the right matchup, whereas previously you'd have to play like multiple copies of Rhyperior or Indeedee if you wanted to improve those specific matchups. Now you can just go down to one-ofs in all of those categories and then have like 2 to 3 Ditto to see you through. Ultimately, I don't think it's that worth it. I don't think the card is that splashable either. I don't think it's going to make its way into being like a 5th V for your VMAX deck, just to give yourself better odds of starting with, you know, one of these in play, because I think we already naturally have enough ball search cards and communications to get over the line in that regard. So I don't think it's going to fulfill that many roles. Then we have the Ditto VMAX. It's a 320 hit point colorless Pokemon with an awkward fighting weakness. And its attack is Max Transform. For 3 colorless, choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. It's versatile, but if we've known anything from Ninetales V, we know that this isn't that strong of an effect, at least currently in the format. The Ninetales is a basic and can do this, and isn't seeing any play even in decks that have a ton of energy acceleration. Even in the like Aurora Welder box, the Ninetales wasn't a good enough include. So that's a real precedent for us that Ditto isn't going to be all that strong. This, you know, still could get going with Welder Attach or with 3CE, so potentially a bit more easy to get rolling than the Ninetales would be. But we just know that this effect isn't all that good. You know, there's a ton of matchups where Max Transform just isn't usable. Things like Eternatus, things like Centiskorch, unless you are playing the Welder-based build. And straight away, it just becomes far less usable to build a deck around the Ditto. Possibly, you could see some 2-1 Ditto lines in certain decks if you feel that V Transform is going to be strong enough for you. And the VMAX is kind of like a tech one-off, but I really do think it's kind of niche and only for decks that already play energy acceleration. So it's few and far between with an awkward weakness. So that's something that I'm not too happy with right now. One small thing to note is that we do get Cheryl in the next set, and this is a triple acceleration abusable card, and Cheryl could be a way to heal your VMAXs, which may give it a breath of life. Even if that's the case, this kind of competes with Snorlax for a similar role, and I'm not sure that this one comes out on top. Next up, we have Crobat VMAX. Kind of half optimistic about this card, because I do think Hit and Run does have a place in the format, whilst we still do have Lily's Pokédoll. And I think there's some upsides here, especially because the regular Crobat V is just such a crazy card that jamming your deck with 4 regular Crobats just immediately gives you a bit of a bonus in consistency compared to a handful of other decks. This Crobat VMAX only has 300 hit points, which is really on the low side, which is a shame. But Stealth Poison is kind of the main attack that we're going for here. Doing 70, poisoning the opponent's active, and also switching with one of your bench. So you're going to try and throw annoying walls into the active, like Weezing or Altaria, or just straight up Lily's Pokédoll to deny prizes altogether, and force your opponent to find those switch outs, which is not always that easy, alongside Boss's Orders to pick up your Crobats and other benched Pokemon. This damage actually can rack up with poison, as we've seen with the Galarian Slowbro builds of Eternatus, and I think Toxicroak is definitely a good opportunity here. This is an archetype that can take advantage of Piers to really good effect, seeing as it can play Hiding Dark Energy, Capture Energies, as well as have a lot of access to a ton of Pokemon. So I do believe having things like Piers in the deck will pay dividends if you want to really pad out your deck with like a 3-3 or 4-4 line of Toxicroak, which I've played on the ladder so far, and it does really make that Stealth Poison a dangerous card where you're doing, you know, 5 poison ticks between turns, that sort of thing. Your damage output is not petty, especially because you're also forcing boss on a ton of situations, and any turn that you're given for free by the virtue of Dole means you're doing a ton of extra damage the following turn. Max Cutter as well, doing 180, means that you can boss things up that you've previously hit, which is really nice, and probably finish them off. Or it means you can pick up opposing Crobats and Dedennes and also take knockouts on those. There are some weaknesses here. Obviously, you are weak to fighting, which isn't ideal. And I don't think this hit and run kind of approach is that strong into a couple of matchups, especially things like ADP, where it's going to get dicey, seeing as though you're forced to put regular Crobats into play quite early, and that can be their fodder for ADP in a lot of situations. So definitely some concerns here, but good enough to be, in my opinion, a better Dole-based deck than the current one that we have in the format, which is Orbeetle. And I think this will be a better deck than Orbeetle, which is kind of rogue and trash, but this is going to be in that similar realm, I think. Next up, we have Cramorant VMAX. Cramorant, again, has one of those really nice V Pokemon that you can springboard into to become the VMAX. So the card inherently doesn't have to be that groundbreaking to be worth looking into, because you already have the V that can allow you to beat catch in those opening turns to help you get a combo rolling, or you can just attack with that Cramorant V and keep up in prize trades at the very least, because you can pick off things like Dedennes in a lot of situations. The VMAX has 320 hit points, does have that really, really awkward weakness to lightning, but the attack here is Max Jet, which for 3 colorless does 80 times the amount of energy attached for each heads you can flip at the very least. So it's a spiritual reprint of Blissey. I know a ton of people enjoyed playing around with a powerful slap Blissey, and this is going to be a new way to do it. And in theory, the Cramorant can stay on board a lot longer because it has, you know, more raw hit points in a lot of situations. So its Max Jet doesn't get completely wiped every turn like the Blissey would, just by only having 160 hit points. So there is that going for it, and obviously there's a ton of great special energy that you can try and spam with Porygon here. Weak Guard is an obvious one to remove some of that weakness, but still be concerned about Crushing Hammers in Pikarom. Capture Energy can again help this deck get set up in the opening stages. Powerful Colorless Energy gives you extra damage output. Recycle Energy means that even when your Cramorants are getting knocked out, you can get those straight back into your hand and immediately re-establish them for more damage output. And Triple Acceleration allows you to do an extra 3 coin flips for a ton of extra damage to hit one-hit KOs. And the good news is there's also Glimwood Tangle in the format, so you can reflip to make that Max Jet a very threatening, damaging attack. My main worries here is that you are still trying to establish stage 2s as well as stage 1s. You're going to require a ton of draw in your deck just to access a ton of these energies at the same time. And at the end of the day, there's still things like that lightning weakness that is going to keep this deck in the rogue tier. That's it for the Shining Fates set review. Pretty brief this time. There wasn't that much to go over, and I have been pessimistic for the majority of these cards. However, I do still really like this set. It's a ton of fun to open these boosters because of the shiny cards that you can get involved. Here's just a handful of my favorites. I hope you do enjoy opening the set yourselves and playing on the ladder with some of the wacky new combinations that we do have in store. There are some fun cards that are definitely worth at least mucking around with on the ladder because they can be interesting and fun to play at the very least. Let me know what you guys thought about the set review. Very short one here. This is just going to be an interim set review for the coming week where we're going to be doing a proper job set review of Battle Styles, which is going to be far more impressive, that's for sure. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you tomorrow for that first Battle Styles set review video. Cheers.